Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another Walking Dead Q&A video. So first of all, thank you so much for posting all of your questions. Again, I do this every single Wednesday, and so if you do want to take part in these Q&As, go and join the Discord. The server name is Appetite for the Dead. The link for that will be in the description of this video. Next week's Q&A will be focused on, I guess, the reaction to episode 4, as well as going into episode 5, and I guess what the story is going to be like, you know, going into that episode. So yeah, make sure to be a subscriber if you want to get all my Walking Dead content like this. But first question here, Q&A, if The Walking Dead is going to continue on for years to come, would you want the Super Walkers to be a big part of the story and eventually they exist all around the world? I think I would like some sort of story like that, like not entirely, because eventually, you know, like as exciting as that sounds, it would get to the point where there's just too many Super Walkers everywhere. And then like whenever you want to tell a classic Walking Dead story, like just, you know, of characters walking in the woods or something like that, you're never going to really be able to do that. Like, I think it would be cool for like a final act or like an end game, you know, show or something that had Super Walkers around. That would be really cool. I think that would make the story really, really exciting. But in terms of doing that, like, you know, just in general, so that every story had them, like, I think it could be a little bit too much, you know, and also like it would just get not as exciting. So I think handling it in a way where it still stays fresh, I think, for the story, and that it's more a bigger part of a storyline, I think that's fine. And then you would have to end that story in some way. But yeah, Q&A. Do you think the Walking Dead universe will answer the question of the world beyond post-credit scene? I feel like it's in the future timeline. And yeah, it's because obviously when the woman turns to a walker, she turns to a super walker immediately. To me, it's kind of what it seems like, just because of the fact that, like, again, super walkers turn to super walkers because they end up getting shot with like the serum or whatever. And then they turn, unless she was shot with like, you know, the bullet that had the serum in it. I mean, I don't really know why she turned to a super walker right away. So it is interesting, you know, and then again, we never really saw her turn to the super walker though, right? Like there's a very specific thing that happens to super walkers as they're turning, you know, to become a super walker. So like, to me, when I look at it, it's like, yeah, I don't really know why she became the walker that she did, because that's not a walker that we've seen so far on The Walking Dead. So if anything, maybe that's a tease at something way in the future. I honestly don't really know, and I would really love to hear from Gimple about that, because that's something that I would really like clarity on. Like, honestly, it is a little confusing. Q&A, what's one thing about the new era of spin-offs that you think you could do better on, in your opinion? Well, I just think more episodes. Like, I've been talking about that a lot, especially in this last week. I mentioned it a lot, but it's just because it is something that honestly, it is really frustrating. Like, I think having more episodes per season would help so much. Like, honestly, so much. It's just, it would tell every aspect of the story a lot better. You could be with the characters a lot more. And that's the one thing about The Walking Dead that, you know, I feel like they're kind of ignoring right now, is just that aspect to it. Like, I don't know, it really feels like what they're trying to do with these spinoffs right now is, I guess, get newer fans, you know, to be fans of The Walking Dead, because like the storytelling feels very different than classic Walking Dead stories. You know, things are just very fast paced now, and it really does feel like, I guess, normal TV, like any sort of TV show that would be out there right now, right? And obviously there's an element to it that is entertaining because so much happens in each episode, but you are missing some of the character stuff that makes The Walking Dead so good. And so I think, you know, 8 episodes, like that's why I really focus on the 8 episode amount, because yes, maybe you don't want to do 16 episodes anymore per season, or obviously not 24 like you did in the final season, but 10 episodes maybe. But if that's still too much, then 8. 6 is just like really extreme, like you're really doing nothing, right? So I just think like 8 episodes would be perfect. That would be the one thing I would change, and I think honestly it would improve the story so much more. That's why I'm really excited for Dead City, because Dead City, you're having Negan come back, he's getting his jacket, and Lucille, the story's going to be getting much bigger. I'm really excited for that show because it's going to be 8 episodes in that second season, and I really cannot wait to see how that's going to feel overall. Honestly, it might make a big difference where they're like, okay, we need to make 8 episodes for all the spinoffs now, right? Like 6 episodes just isn't enough. Q&A, do you think the spinoffs would have been better executed had AMC combined them all into a singular show? The structure would resemble the show Monsters, where each season is focused on a different character or a set of characters. For example, season 1 would be Negan and Maggie, season 2, Daryl, season 3, Rick and Michonne, season 4, Daryl and Carol, and so on. Okay, I see what you mean. Personally, I don't think so. And the reason why is because there's a bigger story to tell with all the characters. Like, I see what you mean in terms of like the first seasons of each show, but that would be assuming that that's all you're telling with those characters. they're going to be telling more stories here. Like these shows are going to be going on for 5 or 6 seasons. And so you can't really combine 5 or 6 seasons of Dead City or Daryl Dixon into one season, right? Like obviously for Rick and Michonne are the ones who live, that works. Like that can obviously work for that. But I just think that in general, that probably wouldn't work because there's so much more story for all the other characters. And so, yeah, but Q&A, do you think Maggie will ever forgive Negan for killing Glenn? I don't think she ever should. I really don't. Like, honestly, I'm kind of a fan of where things are right now. I think where they actually have to go with the story though next, and it seems like they are going there. They teased that at the very end of Dead City season 1, is Maggie just letting go, because obviously a very crazy moment like that. And again, I see the comments a lot whenever we talk about like Maggie and Negan, and a lot of people saying that they're so sick of this storyline. To me, I think it's honestly just being very honest to how Maggie would feel about a situation like that, especially if Negan is always around. Like maybe if he was gone, then the story wouldn't be so focused on that, and obviously what she went through would be very similar to what all the other characters have been through, right? But because he's always around, and, you know, I think that it does cause a lot more issues. And I really do like that because it creates a really interesting story, first of all, to watch. It's very entertaining. And I think that that's sort of where they need to go now, because I think Maggie is starting to realize that, I mean, Herschel literally said that, and it did take until that point. You know, that's the one thing that's sort of unfortunate about all of it, is that she couldn't let go of that like years ago. It took Herschel being a teenager to say literally like, you don't stop talking about him or this and that. And, you know, like it's frustrating and like whatever. Like I can't remember exactly what Herschel said, but it basically took until that moment there, which is like absolutely incredible, because now Maggie is starting to realize like, whoa, we're not really living our life. And yeah, I am too focused on, you know, just what happened and all of that, which obviously it makes sense that she would be. But now she's starting to see how that's affecting Herschel. And obviously it's really affecting him in a really bad way. And so I'm just, you know, I'm excited to see where they're going to go here for season 2, and how Maggie is going to officially just like let this go and sort of, I guess, not really get over it, but like, you know, how she learns to just like live her life. And even though he's there, it doesn't really affect her anymore, right? Like I'm really interested in that aspect to it here. And I really can't wait for that story here in season 2, because obviously they sort of set that up there in the season 1 finale. So yeah, I'm excited for that. But Q&A, do you think they will ever reveal the Super Walker origins and explain the world beyond post-credit scene? I talked about that second part a little bit there. In terms of the Super Walker origins and revealing what happened there, I'm really hoping so. I honestly really hope that they do. I have a feeling that they're probably not going to, and that is really frustrating. I think like you don't have to get into the origins of everything exactly, because like, do we have the origins of the Walker virus? No, The Walking Dead just never wants to get into that, which is fine. That's always been a thing. But in terms of the scientists working on the Super Walkers and all of that, yeah, there is stuff there that I feel like you do need to explain, or at least get into the backstory of, or, you know, like Madame Genet. Why did she want the Super Walkers? Why is she using them as weapons? Like, how did she come up with that idea? Did scientists come to her with that, or was she the one that thought of it? Like, we don't know any of that. So yeah, something there would be really cool, but I just don't know if we're ever going to really get that, you know, just based off of where the season is going. I feel like they sort of explained what they explained already for Madame Genet, and she'll probably die, I'm guessing, by the finale. Q&A, why do you think there hasn't been any Fear spinoffs or characters in any of the other spinoffs? I remember after the finale aired, AMC sent out a poll to people asking which characters they would like to see in the future, so it's disappointing that there doesn't seem to be anything in the works at all. Yeah, well, I think that stuff just is going to take some time, because after Fear the Walking Dead ended, they just finished the first seasons for those shows. For Dead City and Daryl Dixon, season 1 just finished for those shows that year, and then Fear the Walking Dead obviously finished right after that. The Ones Who Live, you know, it wasn't even airing yet, and so obviously that was sort of disconnected. I think that was more just, you know, for the future. Like, I did see some rumors out there, or I've heard some things anyways, about, you know, some Fear the Walking Dead props and all of that from season 8 actually being in Dead City season 2. So I don't know if that's just like reused, you know, props or whatever, just for the sake of having that there, or if that's a tease to like what they can set up here for a season 3, because again, Daryl Dixon, that's one show that's very hard to have crossovers on, right? Like, it's hard to have characters go to France. Like, look, Carol's going to France, and everyone's criticizing it because it's like, oh, this makes no sense. It's too convenient, this and that. So to bring any other characters to that show, it's just going to seem ridiculous again, right? So Dead City, that's a show where you can actually have characters go there. And honestly, I could see out of both of the shows, Dead City really being the bigger show, because for some reason, Dead City has the higher ratings in general. And also that show is set in America and all the other characters are there. So, you know, you can easily have Dwight there. Dwight is like the character that makes the most sense for a spinoff here, right? Like Dwight and Sherry, because like Negan is there, you have the Croat there. Simon returned in season 1. Like Dwight being there and having a story there with Negan, and then Maggie's there as well. Like, oh, it's just so perfect. Honestly, it's too perfect. So I think that they will eventually get to that. I just think that if you remember, Gimple did say that like around the time when season 1 was airing for Dead City, or like around there, but he said that, you know, in terms of anything else in the future or talking about future seasons or if there's going to be more episodes or whatever. I don't remember exactly what the question was, but I know he was just sort of saying like, well, the plan right now is just to sort of get these shows up and running and, you know, just sort of focus on that right now. So I think that's what they've been doing, is like establishing the first seasons of these shows, and then the second season sort of, you know, grow into like these bigger stories and whatnot. And so honestly, Dead City might be one of the most exciting shows. I know season 1, people weren't really the biggest fans of that, but I think that it's just because of, you know, it was a very simple story. Season 2 is going to be getting a lot crazier. And I think that, you know, definitely having Dwight on the show and etc. will make that show a lot better. Q&A, do you think AMC should make a movie like El Camino based on Here's Negan? Since we didn't get the full story in the original season 10 episode, it could follow from where he left off in season 10 episode 22, then seeing how Negan found the sanctuary and the saviors. Imagine watching the aftermath of season 6 episode 12 and the planning to capture our group. It should end with Negan walking out of the trailer. That would be really, really interesting, actually. Honestly, really entertaining as well. That would be so cool as like just a way to end that. But it would have to, I guess, really matter with the story, and it would have to, because like, what is the story you're telling there, right? Like, are you just telling the backstory? Like, that's not where Negan is at this point anymore, so you couldn't really end the story there. It would have to be told as like a flashback in a sense, and then at the end, he just sort of, he's remembering all of that, but also is that entertaining? Because I feel like that wouldn't be the best ending as well. So I don't know, it really depends. Like, I could honestly see them doing another part to that story, if anything, on Dead City. Like at some point in Dead City, there'll be like a part 2 to Here's Negan, right? I think that makes a lot more sense. But Q&A, what do you think happens to Ash? Do you think he lives and goes to season 3? I honestly really don't know. Like for all the characters, I feel like I sort of understand what's going to happen. I don't know when, although I think Isabel's probably going to die in season 4. Janae, I think, will die by the finale. Again, I don't know when, but I think by the finale. Cadrone, I'm expecting to die, but I don't think in episode 4. So probably episode 5 or 6, but we'll see. Ash, honestly, like, it would be really cool if he's in season 3, but it just really depends on where the story is going here. Like, honestly, he could just die here in the finale, so we'll have to wait and see. Like, depending on how all this ends, I'll talk about that once the finale is aired, and, you know, talk about where they can go for season 3, where the characters, you know, might show up, or this and that. I really don't know. Like, Ash is the one character where I thought he was going to die in episode 1, and then all of a sudden, he became, like, one of my favorite characters of the season, and he hasn't really been around, but I think in episode 5 or 6, he'll probably show up again. And then, I mean, yeah, where do you go at that point, right? So, yeah, we'll have to wait and see, but I'm going to leave it here. Thank you so much for posting all of your questions. I hope you all enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.